Thank you very much, Chrissy. Darren Gordon's not here to present today because this weekend is Carnival. So he's in Brazil and I'm here presenting to you guys. So there's something in that. I'm here to talk about the Jaguar Nickel Sulphide project, and that's situated in Brazil. And last year we delivered a resource update of 108 million tonnes at 0.87% nickel for more than 930,000 tonnes of contained nickel. And that makes the Jaguar Nickel Sulphide deposit the biggest nickel sulphide deposit on the ASX that is not in the hands of BHP. So it's a very significant deposit. Please read that at your leisure on the internet website. So in summary, we have this world-class deposit that we continue to grow. We are in the midst of de-risking it by delivering a DFS that will be delivered in the middle of this year. We're in Brazil and specifically in the Carajás, which is a great place to operate with access to infrastructure and low cost and low carbon emitting renewable energy. That DFS is going to look at producing more than 20,000 tonnes of nickel in nickel sulphate per annum over a life of 20 years from open pit operations. So it really is a long life mine. And we expect to bring this online by 2026, which is really going to be well timed to meet the forecast demand for Class 1 nickel. A quick corporate snapshot. Our top 20 holds over 70%, so very tight register. We have some very nickel savvy investors there. You'll see Hermanos, and also some North American institutions that understand how to operate in Brazil in Sprott and Dundee. We also have a lot of independent brokerage coverage, and I'll urge you to go and read that at your leisure. So why do we think operating a mine in Brazil is really good in terms of this coming into the new EV market and delivering low carbon dioxide nickel metal? Well, it's multiple reasons. The main reason, again, is that Brazil National Grid is now running at about 80% renewable energy, and most of that comes from hydro. The process to licence these are well understood. We've licensed them before in terms of environmental and mining licences. Both those licences are already with the respective agencies, and we've also updated them with the vision of a bigger project that will be delivered with a DFS. So we know it's going to be a big project, and we're pushing those licences through. Last year we were put on the Strategic Mineral Policy list, one of the first projects in Brazil to be put on that list by the Brazilian government. And that is a department that helps push projects like this through to production within Brazil. Once up and running in the area that we operate, we'll have a favourable tax system. Again, this is the Brazilian government trying to encourage investment in the Lower Amazon region. And very importantly, once this thing starts spinning off cash, the royalties goes back to the municipality. So 65% of Brazilian government royalties goes back to the local municipality. So the local communities see not only jobs, but they also see investment back into their home. So we are situated in the western part of the Carajás mineral province. For those who are not familiar with the Carajás, it really is a world-class mineral province, and it's a little bit like rolling the Pilbara and the Gawler Craton into one. You've got the biggest iron ore mines in the world in S11D, which is about 150 k's to the east of us, and also the second biggest IOCG copper gold mine in the world in Salobo. Now, Vale's been operating here since the 70s, so that's 50 years of investment from them and the government into infrastructure, sealed roads, power and rail. So we're situated just north of the towns of Tucumán and Orlando do Norte, and those two towns have a combined population of 70,000 to 80,000 people. And they've been servicing the Onça Puma ferronickel plant for the last 15 to 20 years. So there's plenty of skilled labour and plenty of service providers at the ready to help us bring this project online. In 2021 we completed a scoping study, and that scoping study we used a $7.50 nickel price. Today the nickel price is floating around $11 to $12. So you can see there it produces some really favourable economics. MPV, today's nickel price of about $2.6 billion, and that spins off $500 million in EBITDA per annum. Now, we can't control the nickel price, but what we can control are some of the inputs that are going into the DFS that is being rolled out this year. We've already updated that resource, so the new resource is 65% bigger than the resource that underpinned the scoping study. And also we're trying to optimise the mine schedule and the process route. There will be creep on the capital and operating costs because of inflationary pressures. That's to be expected, but we expect the size of the project and the increase in nickel price to more than compensate for these inflationary increases. But it's not just about making money or low-cost operations anymore, it's also about the cost to the environment, and fortunately with the nature of the near-surface high-grade nickel at Jaguar, along with the near 100% renewable energy that's going to power the process plant, we're at the lower end of the cost of carbon dioxide per tonne of nickel equivalent in these projects. So we believe that once we're up and running and even moving into the first couple of years of production, when the grid moves to 100% hydro and renewable power, that we can move this to net zero carbon dioxide for our nickel sulphate production. So at the moment, the engineers are working diligently on the DFS. We delivered them the resource at the end of last year, and the first thing they've done is go off and run the optis and getting the schedule optimised. The first thing we notice is that the pits, which used to be individual pits at Jaguar, have now coalesced into one large pit. This large pit is over 3 kilometres long, more than 100 metres wide and down to 300 metres depth. That's as big as the Kalgoorlie Super Pit. So we know this is going to be a very big mine, produce a lot of nickel in sulphate for a long, long time at low cost and low carbon emission. Just as importantly, we're running the pilot plant. So I know that the pressure oxidation component of that plant has been completed at ALS Met in Balcatta, and they're now in the process of doing the solvent extraction. So we expect that to be finished within either this week or next, and then within the coming weeks we'll have the data collated, and that gets pushed off to the engineers. And that's a key piece in us getting the DFS completed by the middle of this year. But just as importantly, that's going to create a lot of nickel sulphate product that we're going to be able to use to go and talk to off-takers to try and find funding solutions for the project. So while the engineers are de-risking the project, we've been in 2022 and now in 23 working hard at trying to grow that project. We completed over 160,000 metres of drilling since acquiring the project at the end of 2018, and that came to the amalgamation of this resource that we delivered in November of 938,000 tonnes. Now the drilling last year was all about converting as much as we can into measured and indicated, because that's what underpins the DFS and the maiden reserve estimate. You can see there's 730,000 tonnes in M&I. And very importantly, more than 500,000 tonnes of that's 500,000 tonnes, is sitting within the top 200 metres of surface. So that's going to come out in an open pit. Just as importantly, if you run a 1% cut across the whole resource, you can see that there's a nice 28 million tonnes at 1.5% nickel component within that resource. And just as importantly again is that 30% of that is within 100 metres of surface. And what that means is when the mining engineers are making their mine plans, especially in the first couple of years of production, that they can target high grade as required. And that's the sort of flexibility that you need when you're going through the payback periods. So the guys in Brazil have done an outstanding job of growing this resource since we first got it back in 2018. We've increased the resource by over 80%. That's 420,000 tonnes of contained nickel metal in 2.5 years, and adding that at a rate of 160,000 tonnes per annum. Our target on site is to get this well beyond 1 million tonnes of nickel metal, and 1 million tonnes of nickel metal is considered a world-class deposit. And although the graph's quite small, you can see the yellow bar here is Jaguar, and the only deposits on the ASX that are to the right of that bar are held by BHP. So it's a big deposit, high grade, near surface. But we're very confident that we can continue to grow this well beyond that 1 million tonnes. The resource that we'll put out in the middle of, or at the end of this year, will be from some of the additional down dip and extensional drilling around the pits, but we're also going to start in the next 2 months a very exciting Jaguar Deeps program. And this is all about the style of mineralisation that we have at Jaguar. Jaguar is not like your conventional intrusion-related magmatic nickel sulphide deposits. It's a hybrid, understood to be a hybrid between that and the IOCG style mineralisation that we find in the Carajás. And this sort of mineralisation is related to these really deep-seated regional scale structures and shear zones that you can see here at Salobo, which is the biggest IOCG mine in the world, are being drilled by Valley down to a depth of 1,400 to 1,200 metres deep. The mineralisation style at Jaguar is very similar, and we see no reason that this mineralisation cannot continue down to these depths and beyond. The hole you see behind me is the deepest hole that we've drilled to date. That's hole 445. It intersected 10 metres at semi-massive nickel sulphide that I would hazard a guess is going to run over 3%. And that was in a broader intersection of about 20 metres. And that's 600 metres below surface and just below the last resource that was put out in November. So we pushed the hole a little bit further, another 150 metres down to the bottom hole depth of 770, and that sets up the platform for the borehole EM. And the borehole EM is really the driver behind the great success story of drilling and resource growth at Jaguar. You can see there's a lot of sulphide in these intersections, so it's very conductive and lights up amazing conductor plates that allows the drillers to continue on their merry way, or the geologists to continue targeting. So we are planning to get a rig that can drill down to 1,600 metres and a winch that can allow our probe to get down to that depth, and start in the next month what we're going to call the Jaguar Deeps program. And drilling down there, we expect to hit the mineralisation as well. We won't probably be able to get this across to inferred resources at the end of this year, but we can certainly start to talk about exploration targets. And you can see there that's going to be 600 metres, almost double the down dip extension of Jaguar South. And it's important to note in the scoping study that all these deposits, Jaguar South, Jaguar Central and Onça Preta, had underground stopes optimised below them, and they bottomed out on the resource. So if we grow the resource, then we can continue to grow the underground operations and eventually bring them onto mine life. So we're going to work hard at pushing them out. We've finished the RC rig, has finished up the sterilisation drilling and is now working on Greenfield's pipeline of projects. We're drilling at Flipperama and Twister, and I look forward to bringing results from those in the coming months and weeks. And what's going to happen in 2023? Well, we're going to get plenty of news from the drill bit. The Jaguar Deeps program, I feel, is going to be very exciting. We'll also be drilling in and around the pit, trying to convert any hanging wall, footwall waste into ore that can improve on our strip ratios. We're going to deliver that DFS in the middle of this year, and that, along with the approvals, is going to set us up for a final investment decision by the end of next year. If you have any questions, please come and see us at booth 92 out in the foyer. Thank you very much.